This entire anime project is a labor of love. Despite the countless production issues and delays that has plagued 86 for months now, we have an episode like this that came out that has, I think, blew the entire anime community away. But not just the anime community, but also the author of 86. And in fact, the author actually broke down and started to cry after watching this episode. Not because they were upset, but because the sheer quality and beauty of this latest episode was something that nobody probably expected. Because typically when there is a lot of production issues, typically when there is a lot of delays, you know, the overall anime, art, animation, direction, everything could just plummet, and it can become really bad, a mess, etc., rushed, stuff like that typically happens. It's something I've seen countless times over the years while watching anime, and I think many of you guys that have watched different anime have probably encountered something to a similar degree. And so, when you think about the situation with 86, and just the continuous delays, it's clear as day that the staff that is working on this series, despite all of the hurdles that they have to overcome, they really love this series. Like, they straight up love this series. Like, it's probably one of their favorite series to maybe work on, because just the amount of effort and passion that has been poured into this project is blowing my mind, because you don't see it every single day where a series is delayed for months and then it comes back and it looks this freaking good, especially for a series that isn't, let's say, as well known as like maybe Attack on Titan, etc. 86 is, let's be honest, it might be popular, but it's still very obscure in comparison to other series that many people recognize. So it's just, I love that. I love seeing passion projects like this and the labor of love that is poured into anime. It always makes me really respect the entire team and everybody that puts so much effort into the stuff I enjoy watching. Just what an episode. After all these months of waiting, we finally have the episode out, and it is just something good. So let's dive headfirst right into the latest episode of 86 that came out. So, we had quite the good conclusion to the Morpho versus Shin fight. When you look at the previous episode prior, it implied that all of our characters, like Shin's entire group, pretty much died. That's what is implied. It's implied that Shin lost everybody, and once again, you know, they moved on, they left him behind, and he is the only one left to survive. You know, survivor guilt. That is one of the big things that's been plaguing Shin as a character for a while now. And so when the episode opens up, it implies that Shin once again is going to have to go through that. He's going to have to go through survivor guilt. He's going to have to deal with the fact that everyone he knew and loved, that was basically his family, is gone once again, and that he's the only one left. Like, what purpose does he have? And this is something that he's been fighting for a very long time, struggling with internally with what he wants to do, what comes after the battlefield, what comes after the war, you know, what is next for him. And this has been one of the major central plot threads for a while now, like basically since the second half of 86 started. And seeing the conclusion of this episode really puts a smile on my face, and I think many that were watching, because Shin got his answer. He finally found a purpose in life for him to be able to continue moving forward and live on. And that answer is paving a path for the Major and anyone else that follows behind him. It's a very beautiful message, because for a long time Shin has been dealing with survivor guilt. He's been dealing with problems of just like, you know, should I be alive now? Everybody keeps leaving me behind, you know, I'm the only one left. And it's very beautiful by the way this episode concluded. It ended a lot happier than I actually expected when you look at just everything that the series has been building up for episodes now. There's been so many death flags, there's so much darker themes and moments that it constantly implied that all of our characters were going to die. And just finding out that Shin got his answer to be able to actually just pave a path forward into the unknown for the Major can follow behind and continue to go into a bright, beautiful life. It's beautiful. I really love the message and themes of what this episode did. So let's dive in a little bit deeper. One of the big things about Shin in terms of, like, you know, the darker tones and stuff, especially with, you know, how he found his answer, you know, I do think that this episode did a good job from turning from a darker atmosphere to an uplifting, happy atmosphere in the middle segment. And what I mean by this is throughout the episode, I was under the impression that Shin lost his arm. Like, when we had that entire eternal monologue with Shin, like, when he, lost, like, himself, like, he was just thinking about everybody that died, and he was in a state of just, upset, like, grief. It showed Shin losing an arm, and I felt like his right arm was potentially gone throughout the episode, because we didn't really ever see him move it throughout the episode when the Major appeared. So I was like, did he lose his arm? Obviously, he didn't at the end of the episode, but I was always under that impression. It was a very tense atmosphere, because you still didn't even know the other characters, if they were alive or not. And that's one big thing I do like about this series, and let's kind of dive right into that. Death flags, and if they're good or bad. So I feel like many have a misunderstanding sometimes about series when it comes to deaths. Like, when people think about deaths in a story, they think automatically that's good, because it means that the author isn't afraid to kill off characters, and in a way, it is good. It is good to be able to let go of a character when they need to be let go, because some characters do need to die to progress the plot, to push everything forward. However, the opposite is indeed true. For instance, if you kill off too many characters, the audience or the readers could feel very disconnected. They could feel like, I don't want to get close or attached to new characters because they're gonna die. And you don't want to deal with a backstory, you don't want to deal with a flashback or whatever, because you know when there's a flashback or backstory, it's probably leading into a potential character death. That is a big worry that many people have. That's what I have when I see a lot of character deaths within a story. So, seeing how the last episodes of 86 have been, it's been heavily implied that Shin's entire group was going to die. That's what's been heavily implied. Like, I truly believed before this episode came out that pretty much the entirety of Shin's squad was going to die. Like, there was not going to be any survivors. And Shin was obviously going to pick himself back up again, thanks to maybe something happening, like, for instance, the Major appearing, but I felt like Shin's entire squad would be gone, and I wanted to be ready for that. I wanted to kind of distance myself from the cast of characters, because even though we've known them for a while, I felt like I didn't want to get too attached to them, because I was afraid that I was just going to lose them all in a second. And that's a problem with killing off characters. You feel that way, and this series could easily become something like that, killing off characters willy-nilly left and right. But, as I've said already, this series continues to surprise me, and it did not kill off the cast of characters. In fact, Shin's entire squad survived, pretty much with no real major injuries whatsoever from what we can see, which is astounding to say the least, because that means that, for one, this offer is allowing us to grow more attached and bonded to the group, and is not allowing us to just, only look at Shin and he's a one-man show. I appreciate that. I really do. Now, obviously, there might come a time in the future where these characters probably will die, or one of the characters is going to die, which is fine. Character deaths need to happen sometimes. But it needs to happen to where it feels organic, and not just forced to make this series feel like, oh, here's deaths. The series can have deaths. We don't need that. So, I do love this episode for the different tone, the complete 180 shift of its vibes in comparison to the previous episodes. Like I said, when this episode began, before we even got to the halfway point or the ending point, it implied that Shin was about to have a really dark ending, but obviously that did not happen. But okay, let's back up for a second, and let's talk about the Major and Shin's meeting. So, the Major didn't technically get to meet Shin. Like, she might have talked with him, but overall, she didn't realize it was Shin. And Shin obviously knows, but he felt like if he would have revealed himself then and there, it wouldn't have felt right. He didn't want to meet her again on the battlefield. He didn't want to meet her in a battlefield of blood, basically. Like, the whole symbolism with the blue and red, with how the landscape changed, very vibrant. I love the symbolic nature of that, by the way. He didn't want to meet her there. He wants to meet her into, like a happy setting, probably a setting without war, which kind of shows the development that Shin has gotten to actually want something like that with the Major. I appreciate that, but the point is that I feel like Shin did do the right move. It wasn't the right time to actually meet her in that type of state. She wouldn't have been able to think properly or to lead her troops if she would have saw Shin like that in that type of state. So I do think that, there is a time and place for everything, and I cannot wait to see when they actually finally meet. And I'm glad to see that she's alive, by the way. That makes me very happy. I had expectations she was alive, but I am happy to see that she is indeed alive. So let's just talk about other little details. One of the big things that I think that people need to understand with this episode is that it really feels like a good ending point. Like, I know there's going to be more episodes and more content, and there's way more light novel content, but this is a really good conclusion point in terms of just, like, what it represents. Like, if the series, hypothetically, was to stop here, would I want more? Hell yes. But if it was to stop here, like the anime, for instance, I would be satisfied. Like, because when you think about what the story's been about, it's been about Shin, you know, trying to find a destination and what he wants, and, you know, the Major catching up, and then Shin's squad not leaving him behind, and trying to find something after war. This entire episode represents all of those themes. Everything comes together perfectly in this episode to showcase that. So I feel like, you know, this is a good ending point. It really is. Like, if this was the final episode of the anime, I would be happy. I really would. But, obviously, I want more. Please give me more. But, yeah. So, 86. Was it worth the wait? Hell yes. Hell yes, it was worth the wait. Because the amount of love and passion poured into this series just never ceases to amaze me. I cannot wait for more. I really can't. Because I got emotional while watching this. And I cannot believe how good this episode turned out, despite all the issues that it has faced continuously. But anyways, I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for everyone that has watched this video. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below, how you felt about this episode of 86. Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? How'd you feel about the music? Like the Sawano music? How'd you feel about the art and animation? The symbolism? You know, let me know in the comments below. I am very curious. But with that, guys, be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.